Hey everyone, we got a lot of friends coming in. Really excited to see so many familiar faces. Right.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Judy. Good to see you.
Small screen. I see you. You're by a window.
All right. Well, again, lovely to see you all. I am Sarah Chapman, and I'm the executive director of the nonprofit Media Burn Archive, which is based in Chicago. Media Burn collects, preserves, and distributes documentary and experimental media produced by artists, activists, and community groups. Our mission is to create positive social change by amplifying underheard voices, both in contemporary dialogue and the historical record. So tonight, this event is part of an ongoing free series called Virtual Talks with Video Activists. We've been doing them for 3 years now. This is our 55th episode, which is exciting. And these events create conversations surrounding media production. And if you enjoyed this event, please make sure to join us for the next one, which is September 14th, which will be a preview of an upcoming unreleased documentary about the legendary rock and roll DJ Dick Biondi with filmmaker Pamela Police and moderated by the fabulous Robert Feeder. Tonight, we are pleased to be presenting a screening and discussion of works by the also fabulous Judy Hoffman, and we welcome your participation in the discussion tonight. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show excerpts from 3 films. It's going to total about 25 minutes. And while we're screening the films, please stay muted. We want to all be able to hear very clearly. You can write questions in the chat during the screening or anytime afterwards. And during that discussion period afterwards, you can, again, write questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask your question out loud. We love that. We love to talk directly with you. Captions are available. So if you navigate to the bottom of your screen, there's a little like more with a dot, dot, dot. If you click on that more, a little menu pops up and it says captions. And if you click that, captions will start showing up for you. And this event is being recorded. So if you have to drop out a little early or you just love it so much you want to share it with everyone you know, it will be available on mediaburn.org within the next few days, and you will get an email from Eventbrite with that link when it's posted. So first thing, I want to thank Cartemquin Films for providing this copy of HSA Strike 75 that we're screening tonight. It's very nice of them. And yeah, so this event was curated and coordinated by our wonderful intern, Allie Plomban, who is a student at the University of Chicago. Today is the last day of her summer internship, so we're gonna really miss her. This event is the capstone of the work she did this summer, watching videos, cataloging them, and creating collection descriptions. And one of the collections she worked on was Judy Hoffman's work. So she is very familiar with it, and we're really excited about the program that she curated. So I'm going to hand it over to Allie to introduce the videos, and then we will go straight into watching them.
Okay, thanks, Sarah, and hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for showing up virtually tonight. Like Sarah said, we're going to be showing 3 videos, all created by Judy Hoffman from different stages in her career as a filmmaker and activist, chronicling different modes of protest and resistance. So we're going to begin by showing a 10-minute excerpt from HSA Strike 75, which documents the 1975 House Staff Association strike that happened right here in Chicago, where I'm talking to you from, at Cook County Hospital, where the House Staff Association labor union protested for better working conditions within the hospital. Our next 2 videos we will show in full, and each spans about 5 minutes. So the first of these 2 will be Embed This, which was also shot in Chicago, though in 2003 instead of 1975. Embed This does similar work to the HSA Strike 75 video in that it documents a protest, but in a very different fashion, pulling from more guerrilla filmmaking methods. And our final video of the night is a familiar wilderness Northwest Coast salmon fishing, which was initially commissioned for the opening of Shad Aquarium's Oceanarium and follows Roy Kramer, a member of the Nipkish Band, who was fighting to preserve the Nipkish Band's historic fishing grounds and land of origin. So I can't wait to share these 3 videos with you all. And again, thank you all so much for being here.
Cook County Hospital, the only public hospital in the Chicago area, provides medical care to anyone who needs it, whether they can pay or not. The Union of Interns and Resident Doctors at Cook County Hospital, the House Staff Association, has a long history of fighting to improve the quality of medical care at the hospital. In 1975, the House Staff Association was forced to strike for better patient care. They demanded Spanish translators and basic backup services taken for granted at other hospitals, life-saving equipment, more staff, and faster lab and X-ray results. This 18-day strike was an important page in House Staff Association history.
This is now the 12th day of our work action at Cook County Hospital in our struggle for better patient care. This is now the longest physician strike in United States history.
Well, I think they have a right to be on strike like anybody else, especially if they are fighting for better wages and better patient care. That's important.
I think they should strike. I'm a deceased veteran's sister and veteran's wife, and I got to go in Friday. I had other surgery there.
What kind of care do you usually get there?
I got good care.
Could it be improved?
Sure. Right. After all, they're in the same neighborhood as Crest St. Luke's. They've improved all that, so why shouldn't they improve it? If you look up at the building, it looks like eyesore, so it tells you it needs improvement. All right, thanks.
I'm not a patient here. Never been in this hospital, but I'm with the doctors, and anything that I know that what they're doing is for the best. They want to better salaries and better care for the patients. If they get better conditions, then they can give the patients better conditions, which is better all the way around. So this is my purpose for being here. I may not come here, but somebody else got to come here. And a life is a life.
I see the issue this way, that the one hospital for the poor in the 3rd wealthiest state of the nation, in a county that has a gross product of over $40 billion, ought to be able to provide quality care to patients, pay house staff fairly and reasonably, and be accountable to the constituency of this hospital, who are the poor people whom this hospital is supposed to take care of. That is the issue as I see it.
Well, specifically, we came down here to bring up Latino views. It's come to our attention that a number of people were sent home in a 6-month period prior to the strike because they couldn't be properly diagnosed because they could not understand English, and the people in the emergency room could not understand Spanish. It turned out that there was 14 cases of ruptured appendices, and of those 14 cases, 9 were Latinos. So, you know, based on that information and other information, we feel that there's a need for interpreters at Cook County Hospital in the emergency room and throughout the hospital itself.
Many of you that have followed the development of the impending disaster here at Cook County perhaps heard us talk long ago about our sincere feeling that we were being provoked into a job action. We couldn't figure out why. We all unanimously knew that we were being provoked into a job action. I think the events of the last week or so have shown very clearly what that intent was. I think we can no longer deny the reality at hand, namely that for whatever reasons there are forces in operation, the thrust of which to get rid of Cook County Hospital and thereby eliminate the services that are so necessary to the very lives of many of the people who live in Cook County.
Here, even an illegal can come in, or an alcoholic who hasn't had a meal for 2 weeks, and we take it for granted. And then, this was a Catholic speaking, he said, try that at your hospital, Cabrini, try it at Mercy Hospital, with that beautiful name, Mercy. Yes, for years I've been in the lobby of those Catholic hospitals begging that they let somebody come through who has no papers and no money. And here I am never called because somebody has no money. That's what he meant. This is the best place to train doctors. This is the only place that I know that you can really train doctors in medicine and not how to get paid.
And I'm a firm believer also in the old adage that when a kid is hungry, you feed him. And I sure the hell believe in when a guy is sick, you cure him. And that's what I'm down here about tonight. My concern about not only getting this hospital to function properly as it should have functioned a long time ago, and continue to function in a respect of where you're going to provide everyone, not only the poor, but the sick in the community in the best medical fashion possible. And the ultimate goal should be that we should be talking about 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 county hospitals to take care of everyone in the city of Chicago and the metropolitan area.
The attendings meeting today decided that, first of all, in handling the emergency room, that the hospital was going to call the ambulance companies and tell them not to come. That included fire and police. That number 2, they had the mechanism now to transferring patients from the emergency room to other institutions. That number 3, they triage the patients coming into the emergency room with very minor complaints being sent elsewhere. And the number 4, there would be voluntary attendings in the emergency rooms 24 hours a day for as long as they can keep that up, which is not going to be very long, to handle anybody that got through all of that and came in with some problem. Now, what exactly they're going to do on admissions is not clear because there's nobody to admit to. So they are undoubtedly going to transfer. And Silverman apparently told them they could only transfer patients who had third-party payers, Medicaid or insurance. But that's almost most of the people that come through. There's only very few that are not.
So what was the third one, Peter? What was the third one that you wanted to illustrate?
The question of emergency room? The question of transfer? Triaging very minor complaints out.
Peter?
Yeah.
What are they going to do then with those people who don't have third-party payment?
That was not clarified.
Being is there no doctors there to see them?
Well, no, there will be doctors there to see them. There will be attendings there to see them. There will be attendings there to see anybody that walks in and comes through this triage, etc. Now, what they're going to do in terms of patients that don't have third-party payer and are not able to be transferred to another institution is not clear.
They'd have to be admitted.
Yeah, it's not clear.
People are very concerned over the care of patients and also feel at this point that they're that only a solid show of strength to the governing commission will show that we mean business. At the same time, they're very scared that they don't want to jeopardize the care of their patients. They feel at this point that either that care for the many number of years has been jeopardized, and that surely with the attendings now possibly pulling out, care has been jeopardized already.
People haven't had a clear sense of the idea that we're winning and that we're going anywhere in a while. I think this should be seen that way and presented that way to the House staff, not in a way of saying that the ER, great, the ER is closed, but in the sense of how clear it is that the governing commission is having to respond to us, and that it's a show of our strength that they have to close the ER.
Yeah, I'd like to support that. I think that the other thing is the fact that the governing commission has accepted 4 attendings despite the problems with those attendings is something that they adamantly refused to do for the last several months, and they were forced to do it yesterday as well as to move off of their business as usual posture. And it's proof that they cannot run this hospital without the House staff, and they're beginning to bend. And I think we've got to stress that because people are once again in a position where they feel like they're really pushing and they're not getting anywhere. And I think we're beginning to see signs that the opposition is cracking.
People made the union, and if you don't get all together, it's not a union. So everybody has to cooperate and get together and help together. So it can be a good strike and can get better benefit for everybody, even for all of us.
So now, I don't think it's money involved. I think it's better patient care and less working, long hours. They don't want the long hours.
The working conditions of the hospital is very poor. We are, the doctors are thinking in terms of the patient care, which is important to the doctors and the ones that work here. But the poor people, they can't have anything to say because they can't do anything but depend on what the doctors do or what we do. We work here at the county.
What do you do here?
Clean hospital. And we have a hard time trying to get through to our supervisors that what we do is helping the patients.
What's going on here? What is happening?
What?
What's happening today? Excuse me? Protest? Oh.
Federal Plaza, right down the block. They're expecting about 20,000.
20,000? Wow.
What's the story here?
They gave us these. They're nice, aren't they? Brand new.
So what?
Look, we have patches and everything on them. Aren't those cool?
What do you got underneath
they're
here?
They're called BDUs.
What's that?
I don't know. BDUs. Oh yeah, bulletproof vests, all that stuff. You never know. We're all police officers. Regular police officers.
Okay.
Guys in the academy are still in the academy.
Do you get paid overtime or anything for this?
Nope.
So what do you got in there? Wow.
Oh. All sorts of stuff. Yeah, it's like a catcher's thing. Like for baseball, kind of.
So your bulletproof vest is underneath, and then you got this, which is very cool.
I'd really appreciate it if you wouldn't take
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're just here so everybody can
Can
do their
what they
thing.
need to
Yeah,
do.
you know.
Who would you arrest? What is the line for disobedience?
Turn that off, would you please?
Okay. I wonder if this is just like what Tecapa feels like being embedded with the troops.
All right, everyone got your buddies, okay? buddy, remember where you park?
We're not afraid to speak out against illegal detention and the inhumane treatment of those detained.
What's happening?
Well, it seemed to be a chick,
But if you talk to enough rank and file veterans about their personal experiences, they'll tell you a lot of things that you probably haven't heard from other sources before.
Okay, we're actually moving on, so we have another.
So what do you think of the job that the media is doing on the war in terms of coverage? Do you think it's objective? Do you have any opinions on it? Do you think it's delivering a lot of propaganda, or is it really doing its job? Huh?
I can't talk on camera.
Why not? No?
We must not allow ourselves. You want to introduce yourself to me before
Sure,
you?
my name's Judy Hoffman.
Yeah.
So what's news today?
What?
What's news today? Huh?
What's going on here?
Huh? Some people have commented that it's really hard because you cover events and you don't really go in depth into like issues. So what do you think of the job that the media is doing on the war coverage? You don't talk? Just take pictures?
We come here, we see what this is, we determine whether this is of enough magnitude to assign a reporter or to just simply do a 20-second piece on it. So we're making that decision now based on attendance and based on what's new about this. Perhaps what is new is that U.S. troops are now inside Baghdad and the demonstrations continue. So, or perhaps there is no news. You know, you make that evaluation as you go.
Okay, and your name is?
I'm Ben Bradley from Channel 7.
Thanks an awful lot.
Thank you. Take care.
If it wasn't for the fish and the sea, we wouldn't be here, the people on the coast, because that's what kept them going. My name is Roy Cranmer, and I'm part of the Nimke's Band, a member of the Nimke's Band. And I'm a commercial fisherman and have been for the last 30 some odd years. Alert Bay has always been a fishing village. I mean, there's nothing else here. We used to have quite a fleet of commercial sailboats in Alert Bay, and that's dwindled down to something like, I would say 50 or 60 boats, down to probably 20 now. It basically has become a family kind of affair. It pretty well has to be. My crew this year is Barbara, who's my daughter, Stephen Cook, who's a good friend, Arthur Hunt, who is also a good hand, and my nephew Daniel, who's just starting out with me this year. I take my son out because hopefully somewhere down the road when he grows up that he'll be a fisherman. But then again, that's going to have to be for him to decide. This coming Sunday, we're going to have a commercial opening, which is going to be from 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, which is a 12-hour opening. At one time, there used to be fish all up and down this coast, which now there isn't. I mean, there's just certain spots that do have fish now. Before, we didn't have to travel. We had enough fish around this area to stay here and make a fairly good living at. We're going to just relax here for a minute, see which way the fish are going.
Attention the commercial salmon fishing fleet in Area 12. This is the Fisheries Patrol Vessel Chilco Post on 78 Alpha with an announcement to industry. Area 12 is now open to commercial salmon fishing by means of purse seine, gill net, and troll.
I guess basically what's happened is just that our fishing time has been cut next to nothing. Last year it was 8 days, this year it's 5 days. And probably next year it's going to come down to hours. Native people don't have any special rights at this point in time, as far as the commercial fishing is concerned.
Take it up. Up.
After the fishery is over, you take what fish you have got, you either bring it to a packer, which you unload it on, and they take it to either Vancouver or wherever it's convenient for them to work on it. Like probably those humps that we caught were probably going to go into cans, you know, as opposed to, like say, the sockeye, which they usually freeze for an export market. If we end up with 20,000 pounds, 38 cents a pound, you're looking at $900 that the crew made for that opening. The Nimkish River is a traditional home of the Nimkish. This is where we used to get all our fish from. I remember the first time I came over with my dad, I was, 5 or 6 years old, with all the older people, you know. I'd just like to be able to see future generations come here and fish. They've been logging in this valley for the last 70 years, and that's affecting our run of sockeye going up this river. Nobody else was concerned about what was happening with our river here, as far as the salmon stocks were concerned. I mean, if we didn't make any noises about what we thought was becoming a disaster, I mean, we wouldn't have any runs here. And that's when we started pressuring the fisheries department to get a salmon enhancement program going. What they do is take the eggs from the sockeye and put it in incubators. And they leave it there for 6 or 7 months. And they release the fry in early May. I mean, everybody's talking about the environment. The native people are concerned, and they have always been concerned. It's just kind of encouraging to see that other people are now starting to get concerned about what's happening with the environment. If the fish are gone, we're gone.
Well, great. That was wonderful. So, Judy, I think we can maybe start talking about HSA strike.
Sure.
Maybe you can just tell us how you came to make the tape and like how was it exhibited and used, because I know it was a little unusual, and how was making an activist documentary on videotape different from what you've been doing earlier in your career on film?
Wow.
Sorry, that was like several questions in one.
Yeah. So I had worked for the Young Patriot Free Health Clinic. A lot of these political groups like the Panthers, Rising Up Angry, and the Young Patriots had health clinics. So I got involved in the health clinic when I was a student as a patient advocate. And I started meeting the interns at county who were the doctors at our free health clinics that we ran. So when they started their work action, I knew about it, and I thought it would be an important document to have. And I shot it on 1/2-inch videotape, the Sony Portapak, and got access to their internal meetings. In fact, there's one scene, the doctors were, the House staff leadership was put into Cook County Jail because they violated back to work injunction. And that was a real interesting part of the video. I'm sorry you couldn't see it, but we were able to get into county because the doctors, county jail, because the doctors made that happen. But also people were, at that time in 1975, they didn't know what 1/2-inch video was. They just allowed us to go in there, even with lights, because they had no idea what this stuff was. So it was very different from shooting on film, say with Cartemquin, all of our labor struggles that Gordon Quinn is well aware of, who's here, in that the turnaround could be very quick. And although it was problematic to edit it, it could be done. And you could show people back what you shot even on site in the camera. You could play it back immediately for people to gain trust and to let people know what you were doing and to have more of a collaboration with them so they could tell you, I see what you're doing. Here's something else that you can do. So it was very different than shooting on film and waiting for the lab to process it, although I love film, okay? But there was something about the energy and the idea that we were doing something new with half-inch video that not to quite imitate film, although this could be shot on film. This was not, not radical in terms of the structure that I followed. But you find out, what was interesting is later on you find out the importance of this material that you shot in 75 in sometime during the 80s, I think, or early 90s. It was early 90s. The same issues were occurring. And the union representative came to me at Cartemquin and asked me to cut a piece so that it could be used to show the incoming residents and interns and workers the history of county, what that history was, because not much had changed. So there's that use value, particularly with video, the kind of ease of recutting it for another purpose. So
was there a cut in 1975 also, or were you primarily using it to show the different doctors, what was going on?
it was very difficult back then to get editing equipment. Editing on half-inch video was a nightmare. And the technology was changing in that the different formats of like 3/4 inch was coming in. So I had to constantly keep transferring the video to the new formats in order to edit it. So the initial footage was used to show people involved in the strike and to gather support from other communities to rally around issues of the two-tiered system of healthcare in this country.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And you mentioned that, so like the last third of the tape is with the doctors who were in Cook County Jail. Was it a challenge to gain like permission to shoot in the jail, or, how did that work for you?
No, like I said, I wish people could see that, because that is absolutely a extraordinary discussion about healthcare in this country. And it takes place in Cook County Jail. The doctors who, the leadership were male and white, and they had some privilege. So they arranged for me and Sharon Karp, who I was working with at Cartemquin, along with Gordon Quinn, to gain access into the jail. We had to be searched, and they checked the equipment, but they didn't know what this stuff was. They had no idea what a Sony Portapack was. So it wasn't, it wasn't difficult at all. And we spent hours in the jail filming, or videotaping, I should say.
Right. Well, fast forward 25 years or so, people seem to have a really different attitude towards cameras. While you were shooting Imbed this, there was this moment when you've been talking to the cop at the beginning for a while, and he was really friendly, and it was just like a switch flipped, and he just like refused to talk to you on camera. What do you think was going through his mind that like?
I had been with Mernaz Vava, who I think is here tonight. I think we were actually videotaping an interview at the Art Institute with Harun Farouki, a great filmmaker. And this demonstration was taking place. So Mernaz and I walked over there. Mernaz had to leave, but at that time, it was a long time ago, I just employed the guerrilla television kind of persona. I was performing, and I was really not threatening. I was just kind of this goofy camera person walking up to the police that one cop in particular and saying, "Hey, man, what do you got there?" Just being this naive white, woman who was, somewhat playful. And he ended up playing back a little. But then I think when Mernaz jumped in to ask more pointed questions, he started like, wait, what's going on here? And so I just, embedded myself with them, which I think is an important thing to talk about. The idea of embedded journalists, in that during the Vietnam War, you've heard people say, I'm talking to younger people here tonight, you'd watch the war on television during dinner. The Vietnam War coverage was extraordinary. And journalists had a certain freedom back then to explore the issues and bring them into your television set. And that was part of, I think, the reason why the protests and the war became so, what can I say? Such a critical moment in trying to figure out which side are you on, because we were seeing awful images. We were hearing horrifying things. And the government, afterwards, realized that the media played a role in ending in some ways, the war in Vietnam. And so forward to the Iraq War, our involvement in or causing that war, journalists no longer had the freedom to explore. You had to be embedded in an army or whatever military troop. Journalists didn't have the freedom to explore. So I called it Embed This because, ironically, because I was walking with the police. And the reason why that tape got made was because I was teaching at the University of Chicago film production, and students never heard of alternative video guerrilla TV. And I wanted to show them an example. So after Mernaz and I shot, I think Faroki, went out to not only, participate in, but shoot the demonstration as like an example of what guerrilla TV was, so that you could shoot it in one day and cut it in one day. And the person behind the camera was involved and could ask questions and also be kind of a character in the tape. And besides the police, really focusing on how the media would cover something. Certainly not as in depth as the early guerrilla TV videos like 4 More Years, or the TV Lanesville videos that always besides covering an event, the video makers always interrogated the media about what was important. Why are they covering it? So I wanted to show an example of that to my students. So that's the reason for that.
who learned about guerrilla television from you. It's interesting though that out of everyone, I mean, it's not like we saw everyone get interviewed, but the people who are part of the producing the media, those were the people who were almost across the board the most cautious about talking to you. Really only the one guy was willing to talk.
Right.
And that's just pretty straight. Says something about what they think about the power of what they're doing. And I don't know whether it's what they're doing is good. I don't know.
I don't, I mean, Tom could chime in on this, Mr. Weinberg, but I think there's always been an hostility between traditional journalists, media journalists, and alternative journalists. We're not real. We're not doing anything valid. They're the only, it's about power. They were the only ones who could really, disseminate information. What we were doing, I don't know if they were threatened by us, but what we were doing back then was so other than what they had been, conditioned to about being, fair and objective. And we questioned that. Guerrilla television, alternative film, media makers really questioned the validity of what we were being presented with by media authorities. So they wouldn't talk to us. And it goes back to, and this, Sarah, it goes back to Skip Blumberg trying to interview Roger Mudd during the convention. They don't want to talk to you. Ben Bradley from Channel 7, ABC, I harassed him so much that he finally broke down to talk to me. But otherwise, they, nothing. They are of another, the idea of being an objective journalist, not being involved, all that nonsense, they have to play that role. And they believe it. It's unfortunate. They're not human. And I think that's the thing about guerrilla television, was that we tried to humanize, from in front of the camera and behind the camera, how information is produced and disseminated. I don't know. You tell me.
I agree with you about being threatened because they didn't know what it was. And they in no way were able to say, I'm your equal, I have as much right to covering the story as you.
Yeah. And, even I was camera assisting for Gordon Quinn on a film about Pullman strikers, the last Pullman car. We were in covering the strike where the strikers from the Pullman plant went to Springfield to try and lobby legislators to keep the Pullman plant open. And we're standing in a pool, the journalist pool, and they just start pushing us because we didn't look like them. And and I ended up taking a magazine and hitting one of the journalists who was trying to push us away. So I don't know if it was just half-inch video, but it's like, if you're not, they know each other. They're a club, and if you're not in the club, you don't belong there. So they're threatened, essentially, I guess.
Well, I think it's really interesting that people like you and Tom and Skip and all these people, instead of viewing that as a limitation, I mean, that's the show. That's what you put in, is you show specifically, that you're being alienated, like that's all included in the video.
Right. And then that's what I was trying to show my students in 2000. This is part of the guerrilla television ethos and how you cover an event, not just the event, but who's making the information about the event. So
I don't know if this is your area of expertise. Anyone can chime in, but Eleanor's asking about sort of who's continuing this work now and interrogating the way the media is covering things like Donald Trump and so on.
boy, I need to take drugs. Donald Trump. I don't know. It's all, I mean, to me, we're living in such a bizarre world. I listen to MSNBC, right? My politics, I listen to that, but that's every program is the same information. And there's nothing human about it. I'm hoping that people today, who are working in media are trying to understand what it can do and not just imitate, Hollywood. I mean, that's one of the problems I see, having taught video, and knowing the origins of video, from the Portapac, is that video shouldn't be used to imitate, Hollywood and Hollywood filmmaking or traditional filmmaking. There's so much about the medium of video that could be used, to do other, to create other ways of learning things. I mean, you can, even with cards now, you can still do an in-camera edit. You can go back, view the footage, stop it, erase what had, what you didn't want, and start shooting it again. You could do an in-camera edit with audio, which film can't do. And so is the idea to use the medium to create new ways of looking at things. I'm not sure that, things have changed so much. It's so much about success and, what can I say? I want to see people exploring the medium for what the medium can provide them and not imitate what went on before.
And what does the medium of video mean to you now when you're positioning it in opposition to Hollywood or mainstream uses, but aren't we all using the same? We're all using video.
Yeah, I mean, it's, video is totally changed. I mean, you could shoot with your phone now, right? There's nothing special about it. I think when we had the Sony Portapac, it was new, it was revolutionary. The times were revolutionary. We questioned authority. We questioned corporate America. We were trying to do something different, both in terms of utilizing the technology available, the Portapac, being able to, immediately look at something. Now, that's meaningless to people. I think, I don't know, I see people shooting, whether it's pictures or video with their cell phones, and I don't know that they ever look back at it. They're, what's on the screen is what's happening, and then they're done with it. So I'm all confused about that. You need a degree in philosophy and media to figure that out. But it's, I wonder how many, I know so many people who took 8mm videos of their children, every moment of their children's life. Do they ever look at this? Or is the shooting of it the end of it? So I'm puzzled.
That's interesting.
I hope. Thank you.
Oh, no, there's a lot I feel like I can ponder about that, but I'll just remind everyone that we love your comments and questions. I'll keep asking them, but like if you want to ask your questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or raise your hand, come on camera and ask out loud. You don't have to be scared. Yeah, Gordon says that there's stuff in TikTok and YouTube that's different, like counterpoints. But we should also talk about a familiar wilderness. So maybe you could just talk about your lengthy history of collaboration with the First Nation communities in British Columbia and how this fits into all of that.
Yeah, I started out working with Chuck Olin out of the show. I'm a great filmmaker. For the opening of the Field Museum's Northwest Coast exhibit. And we went to Alert Bay, British Columbia to shoot the opening of the Umista Cultural Center. They were the Kwakwaka'wakw peoples who Franz Boas incorrectly labeled as the Kwakiutl. It's 200 air miles north of Vancouver, so it's far away. And we shot the opening for introductory, the typical museum. Let's say everything about these people in this place, these places in like 10 minutes. So we shot this film of the opening of the Umista Cultural Center, which is dedicated to repatriating artifacts that were stolen from their, First Nations people up there, and became friendly with them. And they asked me, again, because of video and my understanding of video, we started talking and decided, jointly, it'd be great if I continue, during the making. Oh, we started making another film called Box of Treasures about the repatriation of their, as white people call them, artifacts that were stolen. I started a video course. I started thinking, this is crazy for them to keep asking white people to help them tell their stories. Why not teach them the technology and strategies so they could tell their own stories? So I started a video program up there, and I did that over the course of 10 years, going back and forth to Alert Bay, British Columbia, and became, and they would come here for Blues Fest. We became friends more than, and I worked on other films that they were interested in making. And then so we were buddies, we were really close. And one of the women that I taught, who actually was working on the boat, went on to be a great filmmaker, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. But her films about Indigenous culture were shown at all over the world, Sundance, etc. In any case, when the Shed Aquarium decided to open up the ocean area, this new facility, they had talked to anthropologists who had consulted with Chuck Olin and myself on Box of Treasures. And they suggested that I make a video about salmon fishing that could be in this special exhibit that ran for 6 months at the Shed Oceanarium. But they had their own ideas about what that should look like. They had their statistics that when you go into a museum, you only end up staying maybe 90 seconds in front of an object, and then you move along. So they said the videotape could be no longer than 90 seconds. It's like, what? Oh, okay. And then they wanted to do a thing, even though, the big thing about the oceanarium, they had beluga whales, right? That was the big thing, which has nothing to do with the Northwest Coast. That's Hudson Bay. But I was available and I had a relationship with people. So they asked me to do this video about salmon fishing. And they wanted me to have the Indians in loincloths standing on cliffs with spears, fishing like they did in the 1600s. And I said, no, impossible. Do something present tense. And I think because I was the only game in town that had access to First Nation people up there, they had to go along with me. But they also wanted, I don't know if you know Bill Curtis. He was the anchor for CBS News, who Mel Brooks once said was the most Gentile person he ever saw in his life. In any case, Bill Curtis was the anchor for CBS News and was very involved with the shed. They wanted him to narrate it. And I said, no way. That the people, this has to be in the voices of the people. And I convinced them to allow it to be a longer tape that I would break in the middle, do commercial salmon fishing in the beginning, first 3 or so minutes, next, so that people could leave if they want or come in. And the next 3 minutes would be about environmental issues and restoring the salmon. So it was negotiating with the shed was absolutely insane and very little money. And I have to thank Jim Morissette and David Obermeyer, my crew, for helping me out with that. So, but it's all of that video that you saw. A Familiar Wilderness was there. The Shed Aquarium's like nonsensical name for the exhibit that was being presented. Everything that I did was run by a number of people in Alert Bay. Roy Cramner, the fisherman in particular, so it was really more like a collaboration, particularly say in the beginning. For our culture, it's probably very boring to hear names being, here's Edgar and here's my crew and naming names. But that's very important to them. Their names are very important. So it was kind of a combination of, not just dealing with the shed, but what was important to First Nations people up there.
There was a private question that came in about how you gain trust of that community, but I feel like you already answered that, but I think it's still a larger issue that's just interesting in your work, how much attention you do put into gaining the trust of the people you're working with, whether that's these First Nations people, whether that's striking workers, whether that's Britney Spears. If you it's something that's a non-trivial part of your work, I know, is the process of gaining the trust of your subjects. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I think a lot of it really is letting them know who you are. It's not an us and them, kind of dichotomy, but it's like, talking with people, being interested. If you're not interested in them, then it's false. It's not going to work. So it has to be a right combination of revealing who you are so that, they have an idea, can they talk to you? I read, or I was told actually somewhere that some anthropologist said that, First Nations people aren't chosen by an anthropologist. First Nations people choose who they want to work with. And I think that's a lot of it. It's like you open yourself up and the people in front of the lens, hopefully you can create a situation where they're not just in front of the lens as objects, and you make that very clear that you want to have a relationship, and they can make their choices to choose you. It's not my choosing them.
Well, that's really great. So I think that what we will do now is an experimental-ish feature we've been trying where we're going to stop the recording. I'm going to stop moderating, but anyone who wants to stay on for another 5-10 minutes, talk more informally with Judy or with each other, you're welcome to do that. You can also just leave right now. This is going to be the official end. I'm so grateful to Judy for joining us. This was just a very stimulating discussion. I love seeing your work and I love talking to you. Congratulations to Allie Plombon on a very successful end of internship. Thank you so much for curating and coordinating this program. I think most of the Cartempuan people left, but I want to again say thank you for getting us the video file for HSA strike. And yeah, again, join us in a month for that Dick Biondi doc. And you are all now after hours when you can socialize for a couple minutes.
Okay.
This is goodbye from me.
Thank you.
I'm not in charge.
Thank you, Media Burn. Give them money.